In this video, we are joined by a very special guest, Danny from Five Fires and the Just Ask Danny YouTube channel. We're going to talk all about Disneyland Resort. We're talking the Avatar experience. We're going to talk Disneyland Forward. We're going to talk Pixar Fest. It's a ton of stuff on the table today. We're going to talk about it with Danny from Five Fires and Just Ask Danny YouTube up next on OG 55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of Orange Grove 55. We are joined today by the one, the only Danny. Danny, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, thanks. I'm looking forward to the show. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. We have a lot to discuss today. We got Avatar, we got Pixar Fest, Disneyland Forward. We're going to break it all down. But before we get into that, if you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so I'm Just Ask Danny on almost all platforms, Twitter, Instagram. I also have my own YouTube channel, Just Ask Danny. You can also, I have a podcast called The 5571 that comes out every week. And I'm also on a weekly show on Five Fires YouTube with Mondo, which you can just search Five Fires YouTube, find us there. It's every Sunday typically, but sometimes we do other days because Mondo's got a busy schedule, so...
Absolutely. And in honor of Speculation Sunday, I got the but Danny, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and, of course.
And the Italiano. It's been what, like 7 hours since I saw you last. How you doing, George?
It's been a minute. I'm doing good, I was really looking forward to this recording, and I can't wait to dive into what we do best here on Orange Grove 55, and that's discuss all things Disney, all four corners of the company, whether it's the studio, whether it's the parks, whether it's even a little bit of the spicy stuff on the corporate end. You know, we dive into all of that, but yeah, so if you'd like to find me on social media, you could do so on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. And then you'll get a siren as well, sir. Thank you. There we go. All right, so let's dive into the topics at hand today. So it's been teased now for I think just about a year. Bob Iger came back to the Walt Disney Company back last November. So it's been a year and some change. And one of the first earnings calls that he had, he mentioned that Avatar is coming to the Disneyland Resort. But he didn't really say what it was. Is it going to be a land? Is it going to be an attraction? Will it be both? Will it be just an exhibit? All we know is it's going to be an Avatar experience. So fans are speculating like crazy. Danny, I'm going to start with you. What's going on with this? We haven't heard really any details. There was, I think, Imagineer, was it Chris Beatty? I think he slipped and said it will go into DCA, but then they retracted that. And it was so this weird kind of unknown situation. What's going on with this thing? What do you think we're getting with this?
Well, I was really... At first, when I saw the word Avatar experience, I was like, okay, well, they're being really specific about word choice here, right? So experience to me wasn't the first thought of being a land. So I thought, okay, well, we have a traveling Avatar experience right now in Asia and some other countries. Maybe once it's done with its tour, we'll get the a more permanent, long-lasting version of this, where they set up all that stuff in a stage 17 in DCA or some other space in the park, the launch bay, where it can kind of have a permanent home for a few years and live it out. That's really kind of what I thought. It wasn't until shortly after Bob Iger made the announcement, and then they immediately posted an interview with the cast of the movie on D23. And it was some of the word choices that they had used. They were constantly comparing the Avatar experience to what they experienced over at Walt Disney World.
Right.
And they even used verbiage saying that um, the the experience that's coming to Disneyland would be as amazing or as it promised the exact quote is it promises to be as amazing as those found at Walt Disney World. So then I'm like, okay, is it like as amazing as scale or as amazing as like the way you feel immersed, you know? So I was a little confused with that one. Avatar Experience 2 could just be an attraction, and then that's what they
Right.
call it too. So I don't know, like that D23 article really kind of set me into a spiral of like, what do they mean by that?
Yeah, no, 100%. That's kind of where I was like, okay, as amazing as the one in Animal Kingdom, and then they were even comparing it in that same article to like Galaxy's Edge. I think they even referenced Galaxy's Edge. I'm like, okay, so this is like something comparable with Pandora and Galaxy's Edge. Now, the first thing in my head was like, okay, but where are we going to put this thing? Like my thing was like, okay, if you're going to build Pandora in Disneyland, for me, and this might be controversial, but I mean, maybe not. I don't know. But I was saying, like, I think, you know, if you get rid of Submarine Voyage and you get rid of the Autopia and the motorboat area, I think Avatar is a perfect kind of transition between Tomorrow and Fantasy. It's that perfect kind of bridge between Tomorrowland and Fantasyland. I think it'd go beautiful there if they could figure out the Spaghetti Bowl monorail track and all that.
Yeah.
But then Chris Beatty at this convention recently said that it's going into DCA, and I'm like, well, okay, now you just changed my whole worldview. Now I don't know what to think. You know, where are you going to fit in DCA? It kind of blows my mind a little bit. What are your thoughts, the Italiano?
Well, I still kind of go back to when it was first announced with Bob Iger during the quarterly earnings, and if you're gonna make that kind of an announcement, you know, for a quarterly earnings, it's going to have to be something kind of spectacular. Now, some might argue that he was kind of desperate in that manner to kind of try to come up with something just to kind of gain the audience attention back, that, you know, don't give up hope, we have something in the pipeline, where really they were like, okay, now after the quarterly earnings, they're like, okay, now we got to come up with an Avatar experience.
Yeah, so because it was the first quarterly earnings call upon his return. So you're saying, George, like basically like he needed to make a splash. And so
Right.
he basically threw it out there, but now they didn't really have a plan, and now they got to figure it out, basically.
Right. So I was actually the opposite. I was like, okay, this is going to be spectacular. This is going to be something big. And then when they mentioned in the D23 article, it was like, okay, that just reconfirmed my speculation. And then Chris Beatty says it's going into DCA, and I'm thinking, okay, now I'm like really confused. So is this going to be like a black box kind of attraction type thing where they just kind of
Right.
throw it in something and then it's there for a little while and then it's taken back out? I mean, because Way of Water was $1 billion film, you know, just like the original. So it's like the franchise of Avatar itself is still very much relevant, you know, in the public eye. And of course, Pandora done in Animal Kingdom is just amazing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't see how it wouldn't work in Disneyland. I would have guessed it would have went with your initial concept, OG, like in between the Fantasyland and Tomorrowland. I'm just not knowing how it's going to fit into DCA unless it is then part of the DCA expansion as part of Disneyland Forward.
It could be, and Danny, you brought up a great point. And when like they said, as impressive as the Pandora in Animal Kingdom, but what element are they referring to? Are they referring to the land itself, or maybe just the attraction? Right?
Yeah, and George brought up a good point with like black box, right? I think Mice Chat, like when they used to do those Mice Age articles way back in the day, I think they were the first ones to kind of leak or discuss about Imagineering's plans to utilize a black box attraction in like the Stage 17 space in DCA. So to his point, to George's point, like that could be it. Like maybe it is a black box attraction that's an experience of Avatar that could evolve and change with the different Avatar movies. They've, you know, Imagineering has been really wanting something like that where they could change an attraction with like just a flip of a programming switch, you know what I mean, and have a lot of have it rely heavily on projection effects and different things like that. So That could be it too. It could be Disneyland Forward stuff, but I had actually gone to a few of the Disneyland Forward like planning meetings, and I know I'm getting a little bit ahead here, in regards to like the community, and they were very specific, saying that they're not going to waste any time or resources in any sort of R&D for Disneyland Forward until there's approval from the city, because to them it's a waste of money of R&D to even try to blue sky anything to go into those spaces if it's just going to be shot down. So they don't even want to begin that process until it's been approved. So I feel like all this speculation I see online of things that are going to be going into Disneyland Forward are really not uh, really based in any fact at all, because Disney's ultimately said multiple times that they don't want to do anything with that until they know they can.
And that's an interesting point,
interesting.
Danny, because it's almost like, okay, so, and that might be why we're getting the experience of verbiage, right? And the unknown, because it's like maybe they know they want Avatar, but
Yep.
but they're waiting for that city approval before they really get into it.
And I thought that too. I was like, man, all this like really weird, like vague stuff we've been getting at like D23 and all that stuff. I was like, maybe the verbiage of like that choice of word of using experience is because Disney just does not want to commit to anything. They don't want to call it an Avatar land or a Pandora world of Avatar, because then that they're held to building that land, and then they're in another kind of space where they don't build something that they said they were going to build. And this way, if they say experience, it could be anything, and they're not committing to it. And then ultimately, if something Avatar's built, they're like, "Oh, we did what we said," kind of thing.
Right.
So Danny, let me ask you, with the vote at the city council to either approve or deny it early this year, do you, well, I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when. I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to say when this thing happens, because I can't go by no more ifs. I get too much of that with Josh D'Amaro already. I can't do another if.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, so do you feel like at the next D23, well, they don't even call it the expo anymore, it's the D23 Ultimate Fan Event. Do you feel like then they would have probable cause to kind of give us some greenlit projects other than this what if, shoulda, coulda, woulda, maybe, if so, because sort of deal?
Maybe. I feel like that's more like in the future. I feel like if it gets approved, they'll definitely talk about some of the, to George's dismay, it'll probably be a lot of like what ifs beyond the berm of DCA, like kind of talk. I think if I'm just speculating D23, I'm thinking maybe we get the Tomorrowland renovation. I don't think it's going to be as grandiose as we want it to be, but it will probably be a pretty nice makeover of the land. And I think that'll be like the highlight. They'll definitely be highlighting Tiana's Bayou Adventure, because at that time it still won't be open. So I think that's kind of where the focus of like Imagineering is going to be, because they're going to be opening 2 brand new rides on both coasts. They're going to have potentially Tomorrowland to talk about. They're going to have some potentially the Animal Kingdom stuff to talk about. So I just don't think they're ready to like drop all that with Disneyland Forward, because they want Disneyland Forward to last them for 30 years. So that's
right.
a long time.
Yes,
exactly. And they don't want to show their hand, because, this is the thing. They're still, because it hasn't been, and we could dive into Disneyland Forward now. We're kind of segueing. But like, that's the thing. It's like, they haven't voted on it yet. I think the vote comes in March. So Disneyland, I think Disney is sort of like keeping like their plans sort of to their, like close to their chest, because they don't want to scare the city either. Because remember when they tried to build Westcott back in like the mid to late 90s, Anaheim had all kinds of problems with that because of the giant gold like spaceship Earth and the whole thing. So I feel like Disney is like, okay, we're not going to make that mistake again. Let's get it approved first. let's just get them to agree upon it, and then we can jump into like what we're gonna do, because they don't want to scare them off, But
Right.
So Danny, what do you think? So the vote's coming, I think, this spring. It seems like there's momentum in its direction, but do you think it's going to get approved, or what's your gut telling you with this one?
I don't know. Like in Anaheim City Council, maybe 5 years ago, I would have said like for sure, but You know, they've had a big shift in like political party in Anaheim ever since the kind of unfortunate events surrounding the mayor that was in office. And you know, the current mayor, she's not very Disney friendly. So that's kind of a negative there. The people that actually live in the areas behind the Disneyland Hotel, in part of the spaces that would be used for that, they're kind of hesitant about like noise and traffic. So, and I've heard a lot of their concerns in different meetings and stuff. So, and Disney's done really good to try to address all of those with like studies, and they spend a lot of money kind of trying to like offer alternatives and do what they're asking. So I'm hoping that all of that goodwill will like let them. But I at this point I don't even know. Like I can't go one way or the other because I just it's there's too many unknowns. So
It's a good point. Yeah, and they have. I agree with you, Danny. They have approached this much better than like the Eastern Gateway stuff, right? Because with the
yeah,
Eastern Gateway, it was much more, and I say it all the time on the channel, but Eastern Gateway was much more combative with the local businesses, and it was much more like kind of like we're Disney, we don't really care, just deal with the bridge, the whole thing. Where this time around with Disneyland Forward, it seems to be much more collaborative, right? Where it's like, okay,
hmm
so we're gonna make our case to the residents, the local businesses. We're gonna have like these little like coffee talk things, and kind of be much more a part of the conversation and less just like we're a huge company and like you just have to like bow to our will. So in that regard, I agree with you. I think it's absolutely a better approach. We'll see what happens. Yeah, I'm leaning towards it's going to get approved just because I think they've handled it better this time. And then we had Gavin Newsom. I think he was recently down at Disneyland looking at like the artwork and stuff for like the like what the possibilities could be with Disneyland Forward. And
yeah,
he's like the top Democrat in the state. The mayor now is Democrat. So maybe that had some influence. So I'm kind of hoping so, but we'll see. You never know until they vote though. That's the thing. It's like,
uh-huh.
it might look good. It might appear like it's going to go through, but
But
then
I
yeah.
think honestly the kind of relationship that Disney has kind of gained with the city of Anaheim now, as you both had mentioned, because of with the Eastern Gateway, because that was
Right.
just a huge disaster. I mean, now I think they kind of have it like it's water underneath the bridge, no pun intended. But
Yeah,
so now I feel like that they can kind of move on. They got the city involved, they got the community involved, they got the fans involved. So they got the businesses involved. So I feel like that everyone is kind of so far crossing our fingers that everyone is cooperating
Yeah.
quite well. So
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. Now, Danny, I want to ask you. Okay, let's say the vote comes this spring, and they approve it. They sign off on the rezoning and
yeah.
all this good stuff. Like, what do you think we can expect from Disney? Like your speculation, like in terms of like, you thinking third park, you thinking just maybe expansions of like DCA and Disneyland. Because everything they kind of suggest on the website, they kind of make clear it's like this is kind of like just like what we could do. They don't really give us any concrete plans.
Yeah.
But what are you kind of leaning towards in terms of like what we're actually getting?
Yeah, I definitely think the I was saying the first places I could see them using the space that they're given is something in Toy Story parking lot, or something in the Simba parking lot, like for to expand Disney California Adventure. I just feel like the space to expand Disneyland surrounding the Disneyland Hotel is just not quite ready yet for any sort of demolition and reconfiguring. I feel like that's just not where they would start. I feel like it's easy for them to start in Toy Story lot, with the Olympics on the horizon in 28. If they really wanted to get going on like a high-end shopping center there or something that could really bring a lot of business to them that they need. I just having worked at Disney in the hotels, they get a lot of convention guests, not only at the Anaheim Convention Center, but at the Disneyland Hotels Convention Center, which is a lot bigger than people think and hosts quite a few events throughout the year. And those guests are not here to go to the parks, and they actually get pretty irritated a lot of times at the lack of things that there are to do and eat and dine with around Disneyland that don't require you to like get in a car. So having a space like that over in the Toy Story parking lot could really be super beneficial to them, especially in those for those convention guests that are going to the Anaheim Convention Center.
And you think also they would look maybe over at that symbol lot for like DCA expansion, you were saying?
Yeah, I feel like that's the first like park that would get expanded because I feel like that's the easiest thing for them to transition away or turn into like a parking structure or something.
Right.
Because I feel like just that space over where Disneyland's earmarked expansion is, you have like the Casimir parking in the former downtown Disney lot that they just spent a ton of money redoing because
Right.
it was in bad shape. Then they have like the other two lots, like Lilo and Stitch, the employees for the hotels parked there. You also have the bridge to the parking structure and the walkway there, and then additionally the entrance to the Disneyland Hotel would have to get reworked. I just feel like too much is like in play there to have that messed up first.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think DCA is more prime for that
Yeah.
expansion, and I think DCA needs it more.
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland has, it's already a very stacked park. I mean, it has the highest ride count for any Disney park, and it just got Galaxy's Edge and Runway Railway. DCA needs a lot more work, a lot more additions. So you can add that expansion out there in the symbol lot. I also feel too like the Pixar retheme of that hotel, it looks good enough. It looks pretty decent, but like I feel like that was to maybe buy themselves maybe another decade. I can't see that lasting like too long. I don't think it was. I think basically what I'm saying is I think the retheme was more just to kind of like for like right now, but like in 10, 15 years, is that hotel still going to be there? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And so maybe that'll be part of like a phase 2 of that DCA expansion over there. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I would agree with you though, Danny. I think they're looking for DCA first and that symbol lot. I think that's gonna be like the first park thing we see. And also another hurdle too with like that whole Disneyland side is it's just hard with these big because you have so many of these towers now with Disneyland Hotel and kind of blocking all that from like the outside world with having that theme park around it would be
Yeah.
tough. It'd be very challenging, What do you think, George?
Well, before I dive into that, Danny, I wanted to ask you too. Now, do you feel that there could be a lot of changes to downtown Disney? That if they end up kind of making like a shopping dining type of complex to kind of revert, as you were mentioning about the people who don't necessarily go to the parks, but they're
Mm-hmm.
there maybe like for the convention or a conference or type of meeting, that if
Yeah.
they then take the Toy Story lot for that purpose, where does that leave downtown Disney? Does it stay the way it is, or do you think that they would kind of reroute it to it becoming something else to, for future possibly like park expansion or what have you? Like, what's your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was thinking that too when we first saw Design Forward concepts like way back in the day. I was like, man, what does this mean for downtown Disney if we're going to get like a shopping district potentially, right, over in Toy Story lot? Um, and I think there's still a room for that to exist, right? It's still the walkway connecting all of their hotels for the most part. So I feel like there's still that availability to like cash in on those guests that are staying at the hotels or just visiting in general with those additional amenities. So I feel like there's a space for downtown Disney. Do we see some things go away and to potentially like add to additions? I could see that for sure. But I feel like there's still room for it to be there. But I mean, if you think future, right, that downtown Disney could definitely be utilized for some great expansion space. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Depending
Absolutely.
on what's more lucrative for Disney business wise, that existing or an expansion. So
Now, Danny, kind of since we're on the topic of downtown Disney, have you heard anything? Like, do we know? Are there any rumors or anything? What's going to happen with ESPN and then that like the old Rainforest Cafe? Have you heard anything in regards to that?
Rainforest Cafe, I haven't heard anything. The only thing I heard potentially about the ESPN zone was that and have both of you been to Walt Disney World before?
Yes.
Yeah, we were just
Okay.
there back in July.
Oh, okay. So the Marketplace Co-op, which is like that indoor kind of like place that has all the different stores in it,
Right.
there was a rumor that they were going to build something like that on the first floor of the ESPN zone for downtown Disney.
Oh.
And my original thought was when I had heard these rumors, and they closed Wonderground Gallery and the home store, my initial thought was, oh, maybe they're starting this now, and those stores will reappear somewhere over there in the ESPN zone. Only to later find out that they only had closed it to, reclaim the upper space back for the restaurant up above. But that's the only rumor I've heard, is that there's potentially going to be like a marketplace co-op kind of thing right there. That's it.
It's interesting, yeah, because we see like just a couple days ago they resurrected a trailer for Earl of Sandwich, and it's like right in front of that old Rainforest Cafe building. I'm like, that's interesting. So it's like, why wouldn't they put? Because I would assume, I'm not privy to the internal numbers or anything, but I would assume that Earl's is much more profitable than the Star Wars thing they put in the Rainforest building. Like, why wouldn't they just throw Earl's in there then? But they didn't. So I feel like there's something planned, and that's why Earl's is in the trailer. But I'm just totally speculating.
I feel like there's something going down too. I was just there today, and there's a heck of a lot more construction that has popped up around there that it's still I'm still wondering like what is going on over here. But like essentially like all of the space around the front of the Star Wars trading post is blocked off again with green walls, and you have to kind of walk to the left to get into the store, and has signs saying like, yeah, it's still open, Star Wars trading post is still open, and like go this way. So I don't know what's going on over there. There's definitely like, that's an area to keep like your eyes on, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening there soon. And with all eyes being on that section of the new art part of downtown Disney, I would imagine that like Disney doesn't want these like dilapidated like old buildings just sitting there. So I feel like something's going to happen.
See, and that's why I feel like that if there is going to be any big significant change to altering downtown Disney, I feel like that's going to come in the later ladder of Disneyland Forward, because they're not going to keep doing all these refurb new things to add to downtown Disney
just to tear it down.
Just to tear it down. Yeah, I don't think Disney would do that. But essentially, are they going to end up changing the security checkpoints? That if they were to, because remember in the original with the Eastern Gateway, they were going to expand out Hollywoodland back where the backlot was. And that's essentially where Avengers Campus was supposed to go. So they would have had to reroute that whole front entrance to where the security checkpoint is to get to the promenade. So is that still on the table for them to reroute security?
It is, yeah. They're currently building that right now. So on the backside of Din Tai Fung, much closer to the Simba parking lot, is a new permanent security. Disney actually shared concept artwork of this when they showed Downtown Disney's like renovation concept art. It's one of the photos there. It kind of looked like a turnstile, but it ended up being just like a permanent security checkpoint. And I always thought that was going to have to be the case, because those temporary jerry-rigged tents right outside a premier very high-end restaurant like Din Tai Fung just didn't really sit right with me. And I was like, I can't imagine that Din Tai Fung really wants that literally right in front of their door. So I thought there's going to have to be something done about this. And so truly now, when you look at the layout of downtown Disney and where the new entrance is, Din Tai Fung is placed very well, because they're in a spot that everyone has to walk by when they're entering. So they picked a good location.
Yeah. No, they definitely paid a premium for that spot for sure.
Yeah.
And now we know Portero's is going where the bakery was eventually. Any word on where Earl's is gonna go? Where that's going? I feel so bad for Earl's. They keep getting relocated. Like, what's
I know. The only thing I've heard is like right across from Din Tai Fung, they're building a bunch of new shops, and in the concept artwork, they just showed like a bunch of random like fake names on gift shops kind of out there. Supposedly one of those locations is going to be for Earl of Sandwich. I had always speculated that they might take the old Tortilla Joe's location, because their original concept rumored for Earl of Sandwich was that they wanted, when they moved into La Brea Bakery, they were testing that tavern part of the restaurant, right? That wasn't part of the original Earl of Sandwich, and at least in downtown Disney. I don't know if it's in the Vegas ones, but they were testing the tavern, and And the tavern's actually been really successful as a test for them in downtown Disney. It's very popular. It's always really busy. So they wanted a multi-story location for Earl of Sandwich, potentially with like rooftop fireworks viewing.
Wow.
So that's to my knowledge, that's the last I heard that Earl of Sandwich still wants a location like that. I was talking about in my video, the last one that was posted on my channel, that the location directly across from Din Tai Fung does have like really good fireworks viewing because it shares the same view as the Adventure Tower, which has all the premium view rooms in it at the Disneyland Hotel that face the fireworks. So it could very well be that's an Earl of Sandwich location, whether or not the rumors about the multi-story tavern situation. But I would imagine, they have the tavern now. I would imagine whatever their new location is going to be, they're going to want to keep the tavern because selling alcohol and like full service is definitely a lot more lucrative than just like a quick grab and go kind of place. But having both really is a big deal. The only thing is like, we don't really know what's happening with Tortilla Joe's, whether or not the Patina Group is going to maintain that space or give it up to someone else. So
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with the changes happening at Downtown Disney. I think they're overall pretty positive. I think they've done a lot of smart stuff, right? Like getting rid of the massive AMC and incorporating like multiple retail and restaurants in that spot, I think was really smart. Having that permanent stage for entertainment. Because I always thought that the setup they had for like the bands always looks like super temporary.
Yeah.
And it's been there for like ever since Downtown Disney opened in 2001.
Yeah, I think it was like built for like a temporary random thing that they had one summer or something. And then they just like kept it around and they moved it all over Downtown Disney. I mean, that thing was almost all the way forward close to like Naples at one point. So it's been all crazy.
Yeah, I remember seeing Suburban Legends on that stage like back in like 2003 and stuff. Like it's been around forever, It's wild. But let's pivot now let's go inside the parks now. Let's talk about this because I think this is very, very interesting. This has been the talk of Twitter for basically for a few days now. Pixar Fest is coming back. It's coming back. I think the first go was it was like 2018, I believe. And it surprised everybody when they said, okay, we're going to bring it back this summer of 2024. We saw, as you can see here, some concept art for some of the decor on Main Street. Danny, you had a brilliant tweet, honestly, because this got a lot of heat on Twitter. Like this artwork was like, people were so upset over it, right? Mm-hmm. You kind of want to elaborate on your thoughts and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I had another picture to share too. I don't know. Can I put that in the comments or?
Yeah, no, send it over to, go ahead and share. Here, I'll go ahead.
Does that work?
Yeah, it's perfect. Go ahead and send that over.
So I didn't know about this, but I had posted a tweet saying that I didn't understand the negativity towards it. They've used this space. This is a planter that specifically has temporary things in it, right? Like all the time. It's had these really ugly Valentine's display that they also simultaneously used for what do you call it? Sweethearts Night. It's had multiple, there's the pumpkin there, the tree there. So it's always changing. It's always different. And they've had like a Disney 100 stuff there for the Disney 100 celebration. So it's like an ever-changing thing, right? And Pixar Fest isn't just happening at DCA. Everyone kept commenting, oh, put this at DCA, put this at DCA. Well, it's happening at Disneyland too. So how do you indicate at Disneyland that Pixar Fest is happening, right? They're going to have the fireworks show. They're going to have special food. They're going to have special character meet and greets probably. So how do you indicate that? This is just a temporary thing in a planter that's going to get taken down for the holiday season when the tree goes there and when the pumpkin goes there. You know what I mean? It's not, it's not like a permanent addition. People are like, oh, it doesn't fit the theme of 19 whatever, middle America for Marceline, Missouri. And I'm like, okay, well, neither does a giant pumpkin with Mickey head on it.
Right. Neither does Paint the Night or anything else going down Main Street, pretty much.
Yeah.
And you're right, Danny. And I completely agree with your sentiment on this. It's a temporary thing. These celebrations are here today, gone tomorrow. We've seen them come and go for decades and decades and decades. When I was a kid, we had the Disney Afternoon Live, which I loved at the time because, I was a huge Disney Afternoon person. as a kid, and still am actually. But like a lot of that decor was not the most aesthetically attractive. You know,
Mhm.
you had the State Fair Ferris wheel above the Mickey floral in like 19, I think it was like 86 or something like that. Like these celebrations, look, they're temporary. They're not going to be like, you know, the same amount of money is going to be poured into these things as something permanent. And that's kind of like where I'm at, where it's like, okay, as a fan, I'm going to kind of pick my battles a little bit, right? Because I'm going to be like, something permanent, I can be a little more picky with that, you know, because it's like, okay, and this is a permanent edition that we're going
Right.
to look at for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Something like Pixar Fest, this thing that's sitting in the planner is going to be there for 3, maybe 4 months, you know, probably from like, it's just not worth getting all upset over, you know? And,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't believe the amount of hate on Twitter this thing was getting. Like, it was
I know.
crazy.
I was just gonna say during the whole like you know, and what OG is referring to is I posted like a tweet saying that I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. It matched the celebration. It's temporary kind of thing. I got a lot of negative comments about that back to me, but some people did show me some things I didn't know, and I gave you this link here because this was talking about Raleigh Crump, and there's actually a statue that he worked on that he's standing with, if you scroll down a little bit, with Walt Disney. It's called the statue or the Tower of the Four Winds. And supposedly this Pixar planter thing is modeled after the Four Winds Tower. So, and it looks very similar. It has color panels, movement. It's very similar in shape. And so apparently like this is what they said was the inspiration for that. And someone posted that in my replies. I don't know if that's true, but it does have the same vibe.
Absolutely.
And if it is true, that's where a lot of people should kind of, you know, stop jumping to the quicks, so to speak. You know, give
Mm-hmm.
something a chance. You know, do a little bit of research to figure out that they say, oh, you know, this is a disgrace. Walt wouldn't like this. You know, he's turning in his grave, and it's like, well, first of all, folks, I just to let you know, he's cremated, so he can't necessarily turn over in his grave. So just wanted to let you know
Right.
that. But my thing is too, not even just with Disney, but any kind of like event or festival, like a Renaissance fair type of thing, they always kind of put up these kind of tacky, you know, not so good looking, appealing type of things because essentially, yeah, they get taken down. But I mean, to this case, I don't think it's really that bad. I think it bolsters just enough to say, you know, this is what we're referring to. That if they are taking it off of the Wally Crump design, but kind of throwing in a little bit of that Mary Blair feel of It's a Small World, and then tying Pixar in with the Pixar characters. I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't see what all the hullabaloo is all about.
Right.
It's temporary. So my mindset with temporary stuff is enjoy it while it's here, and let's just have fun with Pixar Fest. Maybe it's not everyone's favorite thing in the world, but like we said, it's not going to be a permanent thing anyway. So it's like enjoy what it is, and then in probably Labor Day of 2024, it'll be gone anyway. So it'll be just a distant memory eventually, you know. So it's really not the end of the world,
And
but
and Danny, you did see the Pixar fireworks show the first time around, correct?
Yeah, I loved Pixar Fest. I mean, Mondo and I talk about bringing this. Mondo literally champions bringing back Pixar Fest, like it's probably like 100 times already. Like he wants the fireworks show to come back. He's on file saying that that's the best fireworks show they've ever had. He loves this, and I always say that Pixar Fest really kicked off this whole like the whole food movement of Disneyland. Really, like they had the first like foodie guides for Pixar Fest, and like it and there's even like treats and snacks and things to this day that are at Disneyland from 2018 that have never gone away, that were introduced during Pixar Fest, and they really got creative with it. And then you know they started doing other celebrations like the Get Your Ears On the following year for Mickey's 90th, and they kind of just continued it on until they kind of lost their way, and didn't, you know, I felt like the Disney 100 celebration really kind of was lackluster as far as like what they did in the parks compared to OG Pixar Fest. Now, I don't know if they're planning to go all out like they did last time, but it really was everywhere. It was in the hotels, the room keys at the hotels were Pixar Fest. You know, all the collateral you received, like it was literally on everything you touched at Disneyland. I don't know if it's going to be the same. It's certainly at a good time because it'll be in the year of a brand new Pixar hotel opening. Um, you know, lots of rumors. Mondo's been talking about potentially Bing Bong being a meet and greet at the hotel. And then that potentially could make its way over to the parks, you know, for Pixar Fest. So who knows? Like, there's a lot of really cool things they could introduce that they have introduced in the past one. Hopefully it means they're going to do some good stuff with this one. I'm keeping my fingers crossed they're going to have some great food like last time, because I feel like they can get really creative with some of the Pixar like characters.
I'm telling you, a Bing Bong meet and greet with either like a Bing Bong sipper or a popcorn bucket, they got it in the bag.
It's money. It's money. Yeah, exactly. Well, and you bring up a fantastic point, Danny. Is like a lot. I saw a lot of speculation on Twitter. Like, well, why Pixar Fest? Like, what's the point of this? I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the new hotel. I mean, the timing is perfect for that.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, I unfortunately didn't get to see the Pixar fireworks show the first time around, which I will see it this time. But I watched it online. I actually enjoyed it, how they incorporated the house from Up, and how they brought that out with the music and everything. And I know this time around they're going to add new scenes and new characters, more music from, you know, more of the current Pixar films. I don't know. I just think it's, you know, I don't know why everything has to be kind of so tight-nipped and kind of serious. It's like let Disneyland's all about fun. You know, this is just some fun, enjoyable stuff that it's, you know, I don't. You know.
And look, I gotta be honest. Like, I didn't check out Elemental in theaters. I was a late bloomer when it came to Elemental. We actually we have a contributor on the channel, Jay Shear. He's a writer and he has a show on the channel, and we talk a lot about movies and what have you. And we did an episode of his show on the channel about Pixar. So I literally watched Elemental like the day before we did our show, just like a month ago or something, or a couple months ago. And I was like, I put it on and I was like, I wasn't expecting much because, you know, it didn't get like a huge amount of buzz. And I'm sitting here watching this movie going, I am falling in love with this movie. I thought it had a beautiful message. It was a really, really good movie. Did you get a chance to see it, Danny?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters twice, actually. And then I watched it on Disney Plus too. But I loved it. I thought it was a really great movie. I never saw Turning Red. I still have never watched Turning Red. So I know there's a lot of hype around that, and that'll be a big part of like the parade. And I'm sure there'll be something in the fireworks show about it as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like I need to do some homework and watch that movie before the Pixar Fest.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what they bring to the fireworks show and what scenes they add and all that good stuff. So it'll be fun. But moving on to our next topic, this is very interesting. There's a lot of changes happening on this end of the park lately. A lot of changes. A few months ago, they announced that a new Haunted Mansion grounds expansion and retail shop coming to Disneyland Resort in 2024. So this is the exit to Haunted Mansion, and over to my right will be this new gift shop that they're constructing, which I think is actually a really smart idea, even like just like operational and like logistically. In this area, you have a lot of these like kind of like these ODV, what they call outdoor vending, like carts everywhere. And it kind of looks a little cluttery. I like this idea of kind of building like a permanent place for like the merch and like putting it in there and not having all these like little carts around. But we'll start with this before I move on to like the queue area and stuff. Danny, what are your thoughts on this kind of, I think it's Madame Leota themed, right? This retail shop.
Yeah, it's definitely giving me like Memento Mori vibes over in Walt Disney World. Was the first thing I thought of. But I think it's a great use of that space. There's like, you know, there's just that like weird abandoned like cutout right there from where they used to have the fast pass machines way back in the day. And then they kind of just like, to your point, stick a bunch of like ODV, like outdoor carts, like back into that. And there's like some benches back there and stuff like that. So really utilizing that space, I think that building the way it's themed is truly going to help blend right into Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which is literally on the other side of that building. So, you know, you can even see some of like the trees that are going to be added right there. that don't exist. So I think it'll be a good transition point into Tiana's Bayou Adventure and really kind of help place make the whole area.
That's a great point, Danny. And I didn't really consider that, but you're right. It's kind of like the bridge, right? Because we're going to expand this New Orleans theme, over to Tiana's, and this retail shop will sort of help in that in that transition. I think that's brilliant. Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good segue. I think it's fun. I think it's a great addition added on to it. As Danny said, it attaches to where Tiana's Bayou Adventure is, and plus it expands out for the whole New Orleans kind of feel. And honestly, the Haunted Mansion area needs it. It needs some more breathing room because it just gets so bottlenecked up there where
Yeah.
it's like you don't know where the line begins and where it ends, and it's just like you have the crowds of people coming back and forth to each side. And then you also have to take in consideration too, with Tiana's Bayou Adventure opening, everyone then is now going to be rushing over to that side of the park. So then you're already going to have how many people bottlenecked with the Haunted Mansion, and then the crowd flow going to and from Tiana's. So it's nice that they're going to have like an additional extension of the queue to kind of alleviate some of those walking paths along the way.
Yeah, and speaking of that, this is what we're looking at. This extension of the queue area. I mean, it looks nice. It looks nice. I mean, it doesn't, it's nothing that's going to blow you away, but it's a queue area. I mean, we've seen a lot of kind of changes in New Orleans the past few years. We see that Pelican Landing little area was added a few years ago. Obviously, Tiana's Palace. There's been kind of like this refiguring of New Orleans. We even saw a brand new updated Club 33 many years ago now. Maybe almost a decade ago now. So they've been kind of slowly, like piece by piece, sort of like kind of changing this area. And I think so far, the stuff that we've seen with like Club 33 and Tiana's Palace have been really well done. I have no reason to believe that this won't be the same thing. But what do you think about this, Danny, this new queue space?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for the Haunted Mansion getting a more designated queue space that's kind of within its own walls, right? I was just there today, and the entire space in between Tiana's Bayou Adventure and the Haunted Mansion attraction was just a web of rope queues, and people kind of get a little upset that the fountain looks like it's kind of going away with this whole thing. But in all reality, like most of the time you can't even get near it because it's surrounded by like just rope queues all the time. And actually, if you can see truly, if you can mentally picture the stage where it is right now at Tiana's Palace restaurant, if you scroll down a little bit on that Parks blog post, you can see the concept art that has the stage. You can actually see the backside of that wall, the brick wall in the concept art of the extended queue. So it truly does extend almost to where Tiana's Palace restaurant is. So that does overtake the fountain and really leaves roughly just enough space to kind of get back to where the train is at. So it is a pretty big addition to Haunted Mansion. So it's going to be like essentially the way I picture it right now, like there's construction walls right at the exit of Haunted Mansion, just next to where like the ODV carts are, and those
Right.
walls wrap all the way around the entirety of Tiana's Bayou Adventure to where Pooh Corner's gift shop is. So I'm picturing walls starting at literally Tiana's Palace restaurant and then continuing literally all the way to Pooh Corner. With no break in the walls.
Well, I will definitely say the backside of the walls will definitely fit in with the backside of water.
There we go.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
As Mondra says, it'll be Walls Disney for a while.
Yeah, probably. And it's funny too because like, okay, like if I was coming from like out of state or out of country, if I'm like a tourist from like Japan or something, the walls kind of, it's like, oh man, it's a bummer, right? But as a Disney nerd, I love the walls because it shows we're getting new stuff, and I get excited. I think it's gonna be fun. I think this is gonna be a really interesting change to the area. And I'm curious to see how it's gonna like kind of evolve.
I was just gonna say real quick on the exterior and the like back up a little bit on the external queue that you see that they're building. I did notice one change which is you can see the trellis there above the current exterior portion of the queue right now. That's probably much needed, right? I don't know if you've ever been waiting in that line before during the heat of summer, but like there's no shade right there in the shadow of the building even. And that's a brutal part of the line when you're waiting outside. So having like a trellis giving you some sort of shade, maybe even like, who knows, maybe there's some misters hidden in there. You know, that's a nice addition to the exterior, and potentially a new place for them to hang some Haunted Mansion holiday decorations too.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Now we're hearing that this whole kind of reconfiguring is going to take some time. So we're not going to get Haunted Mansion back, I think, until what, like 2025? Is that correct, Danny? Something around there?
What I had heard was, so right now Haunted Mansion's open, right? And it closes on the 21st. So the last day to ride it is the 21st of January. So the 22nd will be the first day it's closed. What I had heard was that the attraction would reopen for the Halloween season next year. So right now we have Haunted Mansion Holiday. So it would reopen as Haunted Mansion Holiday again for the Halloween season this year. And then we wouldn't get the regular version of Haunted Mansion back until 2025 because we'd have to wait for them to then close after the holidays to take it off and then have regular Haunted Mansion again. So I think
that's actually very smart, because if that's going to be the amount of time frame it's going to take for it to reopen, why take all the holiday stuff out of it to then just have to re-put it back up? So that way they can just keep it up, utilize it, and then take it down for, as you said, Danny, for 2025.
Yeah,
Makes
but
sense.
this is all, you know, pending that Disney isn't delayed by the massive amounts of rain we're supposed to have this season. So
I know, and we got a lot last season. I mean, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. George isn't from California. He's over there on the East Coast. But George, I'm telling you, like February, March of last year was like insane over here in California.
I remember, I mean, I wasn't out there in February because I just left in January, but I remember you guys almost had like a monsoon over there. It was crazy, and it was, but yeah, because you every time that I come out there, I think I've only seen a light drizzle. Like I barely ever see any rain when I'm out in California.
Yeah. It's wild. Now, Danny, you tweeted this today. I thought this was fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I love the Tiana Bayou Adventure updates because I'm very curious how they transform this attraction, you know? But you tweeted this today. You took some great pictures. You said here, big structural change I noticed at Tiana's Bayou Adventure. This used to be the first big drop outside on Splash Mountain. So that outdoor segment, they're now building a large wall or fence frame around it. Does this mean this drop will now be indoors? What are your thoughts on this? This is interesting, Danny. What are you feeling, man?
Yeah, I noticed that today. It kind of took me for another thing that took me for surprise too. Not in this photo, but if you can mentally picture when you're downstairs in the Splash Mountain queue, and then you'd kind of do that little loop around, and then you'd start walking upstairs to the left. There was like a whole structure with like a Brer Bear statue to the right of it that would like kind of coddle you in that space when you're walking up to the left. That's gone. It's like completely gone. So that was another thing I noticed. I just couldn't really get a good photo of it. So they're really doing some major structural work. This, I don't know. I took a picture of it, but I was like, I don't know. Does this look like to you that it's going to be an indoor space or some sort of structure for a wall? Or is this look like a, hey, this is for construction right now kind of thing? My thought is that they ripped out a section of the wall. You can see at the base of it where they stuck this in. So my thought is it looks like it's going to be something structural for the ride. So someone in the comments mentioned like maybe it's going to help with like redistributing water so it doesn't get you as wet or something like that. Or, you know, it could be that you're entering, you know, you are entering an abandoned salt mine. So maybe they're trying to make it look like you're entering a mine shaft right here potentially before you go inside the building.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think a couple things might be happening here in that when you raise up, whether this is a fence or a wall or whether they're going to completely enclose it, I think what they're trying to do it's kind of twofold. Number one, I think they're trying to make it a little more immersive because this outdoor part you could kind of see out and everything into the park and what have you. So by closing this up, you stay kind of immersed in that story more. So I think that's an element here, maybe. And then also, I think that when you start to build like higher on these little areas, you diminish the mountain. And the mountain, like a lot of people say, well, there's no mountains in this area of the country. You know what I'm saying? So maybe they're trying to bring it down a little bit. So it's like that forced perspective. So if you have these tall walls or these other things kind of building up, it looks like it's more of a hill and not necessarily this giant mountain. That could be another element of it. But that's interesting because I think that you can do a lot with this section if you wanted to enclose it to add like a show scene or something kind of
Special
cool
effects. That's what I was thinking. Like,
Yeah.
when he put up the photo, I was thinking, yeah, I really don't think it has anything to do with temporary construction. I think this is more for a permanent standing for the attraction itself.
Yeah, I would agree too. It looks that way, but I just have to put that out there because I know if I don't, I'll get reamed in the comments about like, well, you don't know that this is, you know, a permanent change. But yeah, I was looking at the model too online. I was trying to find the pictures of the model, and like for some reason, like I never took a picture of that side or maybe it doesn't. I don't know if the model went that far back. It kind of just shows the front half of it all, so you can't really tell like what the plan is for that section of it. So I guess we'll have to just wait and see how this forms up. But it's weird, that whole side, they're doing a ton of work over there right now. And truly, like up until now, that section was kind of like really abandoned as far as like the work that they were doing. And so I was almost wondering like, man, is this going to stay the same just so it kind of meshes in well with like Critter Country and like Winnie the Pooh and stuff? But they are really doing something here. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But this the addition of the wall here, I think George is right. I think it's probably like some sort of special effect they want to add on that first drop, because it kind of just is a little maybe an opportunity for them to add something that's not there before.
And that's encouraging because, you know, one of the worries I had with this when you retheme something is that, you know, if you don't change it enough, it looks like an overlay. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad they're digging in and doing this, and they're changing things structurally to fit this new story. I think that's very much encouraging. Danny, I wanted to ask you, like, overall, like, what are your thoughts? Like, I'm actually cautiously optimistic about Tiana's. I actually think the theme, especially out here in Disneyland, could work really, really well, especially the location of our Splash Mountain to New Orleans Square. I think it could be a really potentially beautiful experience. I'm thinking like the beginning of Pirates, but on a massive scale with fireflies and everything. I'm excited about it, but not everyone is. But what's your take on this in terms of like Tiana's? Like, what's your expectation? Like, where's your mindset with this going forward?
Yeah, I mean, having grown up in the 90s, right? Like Splash Mountain was a big part of our nostalgia. So I always liked that attraction. But I love the concept of this attraction. I think, you know, having something new and fresh in this part of the park is really going to be what I think what Disneyland needs over here. And truly, I think I'm hoping, I'm hoping that we're seeing some like of Disneyland and also Disney Imagineering's like latest tech and different like pieces of. I noticed, I saw at Walt Disney World, like they're using some of the new concept that they've had with like Moana and stuff like that to really kind of do the really lush like plant work that you see all over the mound. So that's cool because, you know, Splash Mountain had, you know, it looked very the day that it was born kind of thing as far as like the look of it all. So I think an update to it. I love the concept of it being extending like the New Orleans. It's on the bayou front, like next to Haunted Mansion. So I'm so excited for this. I have been since they first announced it. I really liked the concept better that they showed that had Mama Odie's treehouse at the top of the mountain. But I can go for this whole abandoned salt mine situation as long as it's, you know, done in the way that the model's showing anyway. But I think it looks great overall. I love how lush it looks, even if it is all fake foliage. I still really love how like how much
Yeah,
greenery there is.
I was just gonna say because essentially the first piece of concept art with Mama Odie's treehouse, I thought, okay, that would look spectacular because essentially when you take down the tree stump for Chickapin Hill, that was the iconic moment of knowing how to identify Splash Mountain. When you see the top of that mountain, it's like, okay, I know where we're going. I know what that's from. So when they decided that they had to remove that because of, I guess it's like foundation purposes, that it was something like it was too heavy or too bulky for the mountain, that the next initial concept art that they showcased at D23, I was a little bit not so for because they kind of leveled it out. So it was just like a plain grass like on the top. And I'm like, it looks like someone gave Splash Mountain a really bad haircut, So it's like I wasn't for it. But now what it's actually showing, as you mentioned, Danny, like that lush greenery with like the flowers, and they kind of gave it where it's not just flat ended on the top, but that kind of has like like all the curves and everything into it.
Yeah.
So I think it's coming along nicely, and I think if they do it, if the execution is done well, I think that would look phenomenal at night.
I think there's so much potential with this. When you go inside there, because I think they're going to use like this, like kind of like the Runaway Railway, like the background technology. So if you're going through the attraction, I'm sure they're going to have like maybe like animated backgrounds with like characters or fireflies, and then you're going to have the physical sets in front. I'm sure we're going to have really top-notch animatronics with Tiana and Louie. I think we can have something here. I really do. One of the things for me, at least for our Splash Mountain, I've never been on the Florida Splash Mountain, but I think some of the animatronics for our version here in Disneyland were not super impressive. They looked a little bit like stuffed animals. A lot of them did, at least. So I'm looking forward to see how they step up the animatronic game in this version. And I think it's gonna be impressive. So.
And the Lewis animatronic, I was very impressed. I mean, they didn't have him fully skinned yet. You could still see like the Under Armour and the schematics and everything, but the scope of that gator looked amazing to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think George is right when it comes to like at nighttime. I think this is going to shine. I mean, Disney showed us the concept art, right, of what specifically the Disneyland version would look like at night, and there's fireflies, there's really dramatic uplighting, not only on the water tower but on all of those, I don't know what kind of trees those are that grow out of the swamp, but those are fake trees that they added at Disney World, and they're going to have those too here. So I think, it's going to really be a section that draws you in. Like you'll see it behind like Haunted Mansion in the distance, and you're going to be like, oh, what is that? I want to see what that looks like. So I think at nighttime, it's going to be a really big draw.
Now, Danny, what are your thoughts on like? Do you think we're going to see much difference between the two, like from the Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom version?
Oh yeah, definitely. There is a big difference when you ride it for Splash Mountain, anyway. So I would imagine they're going to have a whole like one or two scenes that we don't even have because of just how long the ride is. So I loved Splash Mountain over there way better than over here. So I'm excited to ride. And plus, when you ride it over there, you don't get wet. And ours, you just get like drenched beyond all reason. So
yeah, because I've been on both, and because for me being an East Coaster, I've been to Walt Disney World first. I was a late bloomer for Disneyland. I didn't experience Disneyland until I was 21, and so I was so used to Walt Disney World's Splash Mountain, and so when I went on Disneyland's, I thought, okay, the logs are different. You sit, behind each person rather than side by side. It's more like the Space Mountain version of Walt Disney World, but Splash Mountain over here. And I was in the front. So mind you, now I didn't know exactly like what I was expecting. So we're going through and everything. And then it was the inside drop down the tunnel. And as soon as we came up, I swear to you, I thought I was under the water. Like I thought I was just engulfed with nothing and I was soaked. I was literally
I really
soaked.
hope they fix that part for Tiana. I really do.
Yeah, it gets you so. Although not as bad as Grizzly Peak. Oh my gosh, that thing is wild, absolutely wild.
But yeah, I do think it'll be different because the rides themselves are different. So it'll definitely have some scenes that we don't have. that I'm excited. I'll be excited to experience it there as well as here.
And I do agree with you, Danny. Now that I'm thinking about it, because even though the ride vehicles are different on both coasts, the the building structures are very different. Where with
Mhm.
Disneyland, you can kind of go through the scenes, where when you go to Walt Disney World, you're kind of watching the scene. So it's sort of like you're going through, like you're still going through the scenes, but it's more like you're watching it rather than you're going through, because there's like little mini dips within
Mhm.
uh
Yep.
Disneylands that we don't have over in Florida. So I'm assuming they're going to have to kind of cater to already what the track is to fit the storyline with Tiana. So I kind of hope it is a little bit different, so that way we can kind of, get a little something a little bit different on each coast. Because I'm a huge fan that I don't like something that's repeated in the Disney parks,
Mhm.
like for Galaxy's Edge, like it's basically a carbon copy
Yeah.
of over there. But I do love the entrance ways to Disneyland's way better than Walt Disney World's.
Yeah. 100%.
Oh, beautiful transit. It's like a masterclass at transitions, right? Like that whole like Rivers of America into Galaxy's Edge is just beautiful. It's absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful. And I wasn't sure how that was going to work because I was thinking like when they said Star Wars land, I was thinking like Star Tours, like that aesthetic in a land. I'm like, well, that's kind of like Tomorrowland behind the Rivers of America. I'm not really feeling that. But when they went the route they did with this planet with the giant, rock work, and it worked beautifully. I really liked how that turned out. Now all they got to do is add some like roaming aliens and some little bands and stuff, and it'll be perfect,
Yeah.
So that's all they really need over there.
Now, Danny, one last thing I want to ask you, and I just wanted to get your opinion on.
Mhm.
This is completely like random. I'm going to take us back over to DCA really
Okay.
quick. What is your overall thoughts? Because I love getting people's interpretations on this, because I have my own personal opinions on it. What are your thoughts on World of Color 1 compared
Um,
to the original?
Compared to the original, well, the original is um is certainly the best, right? Like I love the song they chose. I love the sections of the different movies that they've chosen throughout the years as it's evolved. Um, but I was always a supporter and like a very lone supporter of World of Color 1. I love the song. I think the song's so good, and I just think it does have some slow moments in the middle of the show, and it's not as maybe fast paced of a story as like the clippiness of the original. But I just love the song and the concept behind the message of World of Color 1.
Sure.
I felt like it had potential, and I really do like to watch it when I watch it, but I know a lot of people, like, the consensus is they don't really enjoy it.
Yeah, for me, it's like it's okay. Like I can like give or take of it. I do agree with you. I do love the behind message of what the one, like the
Hmm.
number one, is actually really standing for, and I think a lot of people kind of misinterpret that. But yeah, compared to the original World of Color, I don't think anything could like touch
Yeah.
that. That was like
Mhm.
nighttime spectacular golden,
Yeah.
and because that was always like, because with DCA there really wasn't too much, over there like at nighttime that would kind of keep you in the parks. Like with
Right.
Disneyland, you have the fireworks, you have the parades, you have Phantasmic, and now with World of Color, that it keeps the people's butts in the park. So
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I do still love World of Color. It's very unique and different, and it's definitely a DCA vibe for
Oh,
sure. I
for
don't think
sure.
it would.
Yeah.
I don't think that kind of show would fit really anywhere else. It fits DCA.
Yeah, and I think too, like, I don't know, um, like with Disney and the Nighttime Spectacular specifically, like, a lot of people have family traditions that develop over the years in watching these shows, right? It's like the way that they can't close out their night. And lately, it seems Disney's had this like incessant need to like change the shows so regularly and have different versions of it. When in actuality, like the best the most beloved show is Fantasmic, which ran for like 20 some years and basically unchanged, and people still wanted it the same way it was. And then you have like Wishes over at Magic Kingdom, which ran for like almost 30 years, and people didn't care. They literally didn't care. They would buy a dessert show every single time for that. They would go watch it on top of the Contemporary Resort, eating dinner at California Grill. They didn't care. It was like a tradition for them. And
I tell you, man, I was a Wishes fan.
yeah.
I have the farewell T-shirt. I was there. I swear, I was ready to play taps.
I love
you,
Wishes.
you were like a Wishes groupie, huh? You were like all in.
I was.
I'm that way about Illuminations. So like I still think fondly. I have the farewell everything Illumination.
I do too. I have my
So-
I have my Illuminations farewell. The one where Mickey is like blowing out the torch.
Yep. Oh my god, I can't. But so like I feel like there's this need for Disney to make like, and I get why they made like World of Color 1, right? Like a different version for the 100. But like I hope they don't think that like they need to develop like World of Color 2.0, because truly like it could go back to World of Color like OG version for like another 10 years or so, and people literally wouldn't care. So like I just think like there doesn't need to be that many variances of nighttime spectaculars, because I think people really learn to like the ones that they have, and it doesn't need to change as often as I think they think it needs to change.
And I think it's funny that you say that, and you bring up Phantasmic. Now, I do know there has to be some changes to the show right now due to the fact of not having the dragon, so they have to kind of change some things too. But I love also to the fact that they're bringing back the Peter Pan segment that so I'm like really happy about that. So again, they changed it, which it was okay. I mean, but in comparison with Pirates to Peter Pan, I was still a Peter Pan fan. So I'm so glad that Disney kind of went the route to kind of go back to that original notion.
And we are getting Wondrous Journeys for a little bit of time, which I love that show. Did you get a chance to see that, Danny?
Yeah, I love Wondrous Journey. I actually come to find out, like I had a neighborhood friend like that I grew up with, and she ended up marrying the person that wrote the song for that show. And I didn't even know that until we were talking the other day, and she was just like, oh, and she was like towards the end of its run, she was like, I asked her like, hey, what, we had connected and we had lost touch communication for a while. And she was like, oh, I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm actually at Disneyland and we're going to go watch the Wondrous Journey show for the first time. My husband actually wrote the song for that show, and we hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a small world.
That's crazy.
That's wild. I love that show. It's beautiful. And the way it ends with Pooh saying he wishes it didn't end and we could do
that's the best. I'm sorry. Like, can we just go back to page 1 and do it all over again? And it's like, but Pooh, it's just the turn of a page,
It was such a gorgeous tribute to Disney animation. It's a gorgeous tribute to it,
Well, since I know that George is like such a huge fan of Illuminations, what do you think about Luminous?
Okay, so for Luminous, now we did do like a watch party. We did a OG 55 live. Our buddy Slimer was on location and he was there, so I got to see some of it. The reception was kind of like on the fence. It was kind of going in and out because we were live. But I did go back and rewatch it. I thought it was decent. It's definitely better than Harmonious. I will say that. Even better than Epcot Forever, but I still want to see Luminous. I'm going to see it later on in the month when I go down to Florida. I want to see it actually in person for myself. But for me, I still don't think anything can kind of hold up to Illuminations. I don't.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to be a thing where like it grows on people? Because I know anyway, a lot of people, I was in the minority when I said that Illuminations was my favorite Disney show. A lot of people didn't like it. They said it was like boring and had a lot of slow spots, but I thought it was like a great show. I think the one thing I did like about Luminous is that it went back to like the just fireworks and music.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yes.
So, like,
it didn't like overpower like where they had to utilize like all the newer technology. I did appreciate that. As I said, for what I've seen, I enjoyed it. And I think I'm kind of reserving my full on opinion until I see it in person. Because I always
Yeah.
say that to people. It's like I can give you somewhat of my opinion, but it's like I have to like see it in person to really justify of what I'm looking at. But
Yeah.
right now, Luminous is still great. As I said, I think they did much better than than what they had before. But right now, like Illuminations is still my top dog nighttime
Same.
show from Epcot.
Yep.
So Danny, you're a Disneylander. Now, have you always been a Disneylander, or were you living in Florida for a while?
No, I've always been a Disneylander, but I started going to Florida in like the early 2000s,
Okay.
and very regularly, and I fell in love with it and continued going. So I have a lot of really great memories of like the early 2000s of Epcot and like Magic Kingdom, and I just really I think that Walt Disney World is so special. Like like I know there's Disneyland's like very special in its own way, but like there's just something great about Walt Disney World, and specifically like Epcot and the way it's always been. And so I think, I just get really like I get really nostalgic about like some of the old music from Epcot and just like the weird music they used to play in like the Future World area. Like I could just listen to that on loop. And so I'm definitely like split between both. Like I would definitely say that if I had to like pick one over the other, like I feel like Disneyland's always going to be my top like actual park for whatever. I mean, for me, I don't know if this is sacrilege for George, but like for me, when I go, like the Magic Kingdom is like a skip park for me. Like I don't really like the Magic Kingdom.
No, honestly, Danny, this is it's actually not sacrilegious because up until I started going to Disneyland, I said Magic Kingdom is, oh my gosh, it's the park. It has
Mhm.
Cinderella Castle, it has all that. When I started going to Disneyland, I thought, boy, did we get gypped. And it's
Mhm.
and it's like in comparison, and then when I took OG Don for his first time,
Yeah.
and his analogy was spot on. And OG, I'll let you
Oh
explain that
yeah.
because we were actually in the park when he
Yeah.
said this.
So I had my first trip ever because I born and raised out here in Southern California, going to Disneyland all the time for like, for like 20 something years now as an annual pass holder. I'll go to Disney World with George for the first time back in this past July. And Magic Kingdom was actually my least favorite of all the parks. And I was kind of explaining it to George. It was almost like when they do these live action remakes of the animated movies, it like hits all the same beats. It's all the same music. And technically they're doing the same thing, but it lacks like the soul or the heart or something's missing, And that's what I feel Magic Kingdom is. It's like the live action Disneyland, right? It's like, okay, it does everything that Disneyland does kind of right, but it just doesn't feel the same.
Mhm.
It feels very sterile. It just doesn't have the same energy. Now it's completely opposite with like Epcot. I feel that, I loved Epcot. Animal Kingdom. I fell in love with Animal Kingdom. Like as George, like
We weren't even through the turnstiles yet, and he was like all in it. And I was like, we didn't even get up to the Oasis, and I'm like, I mean, if you're loving it now, bro, you're really gonna.
I walked into Animal Kingdom like, say no more. You sold me.
Yeah.
Like,
It's the best Disney park in domestically, I think, anyway.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, Magic Kingdom, I'll go in and I'll ride the People Mover a lot, and then I will do Carousel of Progress.
That's it.
But like, I really even never go to the left side of the park, and I'll just leave, and I'll come watch like Happily Ever After, like whatever fireworks show is going. But yeah, just for me, I'd rather spend more time at the other parks.
And actually, that's all the stuff that we did because we only did Magic Kingdom half day. We did the People
Yeah.
Mover, we did the Carousel of Progress. I showed him Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which that was hilarious, like right out of the gate because we were like all the way in the back, so he wasn't expecting it to just go like full thrust like down.
Well,
like,
because
as it starts.
Yeah, it's a family coaster, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna go through a bunch of like little cutesy scenes first before we actually get to the speed, And like I buckle up, and then like out the gate, like immediately we just like take off. I'm like, wow, I turned to George going, this is crazy. We're starting off quick, yeah. But I love that ride though. I really love that ride a lot. I think that's really cool. I wish we would get something like that out here for our Fantasyland. It doesn't have to be Seven Dwarfs. Make it the Arendelle thing or something, whatever, Tangled, whatever, But I mean, fantastic, But Danny, it was an absolute pleasure having you on, sir, talking parks today with us. Thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to do this.
Yeah, I loved it. It was great. Love having I could do this anytime. It's a lot of fun.
You're always welcome to come back on whenever you
Absolutely.
want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Danny, if you could just remind everybody where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, you can find me on all social media at Just Ask Danny, also on my YouTube channel. And then also I have a podcast called 5571, where I talk mainly about Disneyland, but other parks too.
Perfect. And links will be down below in the description. Make sure you subscribe and follow Danny. Show him all the love. And the Italiano, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You could find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. And Danny, he came up with that little slogan by himself. That was pretty clever.
Yes, I love it.
But thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we talked about today, whether it be Avatar, coming to Disneyland, Pixar Fest, Tiana's Bayou Adventure, Haunted Mansion, all that good stuff, Illumination, everything. Comment down below. We would love to hear from you. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye, everybody.